Night of the Living Dead is a classic horror movie about the fear and paranoia of the late 60s. Above all else, it's the first movie to feature zombies as the genre we know and love.
Hi guys, welcome to Turn 1 with Guys the Beholder. Today we're going to teach you everything you need to know to survive your first scene of Night of the Living Dead. To begin setup, first you must select a scene to act out. For this video, we're going to use Scene 1. Each scene will tell you the tiles you need to use and how to set them up. Along with the scene tiles, it will also tell you where to place the ghoul spawners, additional tokens that are needed, and miniatures needed.
Next, take the 6 survivors and distribute them among players as you see fit. It is recommended that new players try to only use one character, but if you're feeling brave, you can use all 6 characters yourself. Each player takes one dashboard from each of their survivors.
For example, you're playing as Barbara and have selected the red color. You will take the 2 bases and place them on the bottom of the miniatures. Then, take the 8 trackers and set them in the dashboard like so. Now that the dashboard is set up, let us explain what everything on this dashboard means. In the top left, we have the wound bar. Each survivor starts with 0 wounds. Along the bottom is the XP tracker. Each survivor starts on 0 XP in the blue danger zone. As you progress and gain XP, you will advance along the danger zones.
In the middle section, we have your left and right hands, which can hold 1 item each, your survivor ID, and your level tracker. Across the top are 3 empty spaces. This is your inventory backpack where you can store items not in your hands. In the top right, you have the reserve trackers. These can be used to fill in your wound bars as you take damage. They can also be used to mark your current level, along with the skills you have selected as you level up. Speaking of leveling up, we should take this chance to explain the double-sided IDs and how you get experience and skills.
Survivor ID cards are double-sided. They can be flipped back and forth as the game goes on. They flip as survivors build trust, relatives show up, or other scenario-specific events happen. The Romero Mode, the black and white side, shows the movie version of the survivor, while the Zombicide Mode shows an alternate, more powerful survivor. Whenever you flip between the sides, don't forget to exchange your miniature on the game board to help keep track. For each ghoul eliminated, a survivor gains 1 experience point and moves the XP tracker up a notch on their danger bar. Some game features provide an additional experience. There are 4 danger levels on the danger bar: blue, yellow, orange, and red. Reaching a new danger level provides the survivor with new skills to help them on their scene.
In Romero Mode, survivors have no skills at the blue level. They gain 1 at the yellow, orange, and red levels. In Zombicide Mode, survivors have skills at the blue level, then gain an additional action at the yellow level. Upon reaching the orange level, the players will choose a skill among the 2 indicated at this level. Repeat this process upon reaching the red level by choosing a skill amongst the 3 shown at this level. As new skills are unlocked, place new trackers on the dashboard. These trackers do not move as the ID card is switched back and forth.
Now that we know about the dashboard and skills, let's get back to setup. Set the following equipment cards in separate decks. They are categorized by their respective colors. Starting equipment is gray, ranged equipment is green, melee equipment is red, house equipment is brown, special equipment is blue. Take the starting equipment and distribute them randomly among the survivors. Remember, during the setup of Scene 1, the Winchester 94 starts in the house and shouldn't be part of the starting equipment. Each survivor should start with 1 starting equipment card, which starts in their hands.
Take the ghoul, range, melee, and house equipment decks and shuffle each of them and place them face down close to the board like so. Make sure survivor miniatures are in the correct starting position for the scene. For the first scene, you will randomly select who is the first player. But before you start, we should talk about what you can do on your turn and the phases of the game.
Starting with whoever is the first player, each player activates their survivors one after the other, in any order. Each survivor, when activated, can perform up to 3 actions. As you level up, this can increase to more actions. The actions you can take are move, search, interact with doors and scene objects, barricading, trading, interact with the car, attack, and you can also spend an action doing nothing.
The first action we will cover is the move action. When moving in an interior zone, actors may move from one zone to another as long as their zones are linked by an opening, such as a door or a window. When moving in an exterior zone, you may move from a zone to any adjacent zone, however, not to diagonal zones. Furthermore, when moving from an exterior zone to an interior zone, and vice versa, there must be an opening. There are a couple of other special rules for when you are moving. When leaving a zone that has a ghoul in it, the survivor must spend 1 additional action per ghoul. When entering a zone containing ghouls, the survivor's movement action ends.
The search action allows you to search an interior zone for equipment and items you need. However, you can only search the zone you are in, and only if there are no ghouls in that zone. Each survivor can only perform a single search action per turn, no matter what. If the survivor is in Romero Mode, they can only draw from the house equipment deck. If the survivor is in Zombicide Mode, they can draw from ranged, melee, or house equipment decks. Some scenarios require you to be in certain rooms to draw from certain decks. After you draw from the deck, you can either place it in the survivor's inventory, reorganize as you see fit, or immediately discard it.
The interact with doors and objects action are similar. For doors, you take an action to either open or close the door, but this can only be done if there are no ghouls in that zone. To interact with scene objectives or objects, you immediately spin the action to carry out the effect of the scene objective or object. It's that easy. The Barricade action allows you to build up some much needed defense to protect you and your fellow survivors from the ghoulish horde. This action can be done in 3 ways and only if there's a barricade in their zone. Along with that, there could be no ghouls in your zone to attempt this action. Building a barricade if the scene allows it. Make sure to check out your scene's special rules. Opening a barricade using an equipped weapon. Only certain weapons can open barricades, but we will cover that later. After opening a barricade, flip the token to its open side. Closing a barricade. Flip the barricade token to its closed side. No special equipment is needed.
The trading action is extremely important to Night of the Living Dead, as it is your best chance for survival. The survivor wishing to trade can simultaneously exchange any number of cards with one and only one other survivor, so long as they are in the same zone. Both you and the other survivor may reorganize their own inventory as they see fit. A trade action doesn't have to be equal. You can trade everything for nothing if both parties agree. The car is a scene-specific object. For your first couple of scenes, it will not be involved. So for now, just know you can get in or out of the car, change seats in the car, and drive the car.
The attack action can be broken up into 2 different options, melee and range attacks. Before we can dive in further, we should take this chance to get to know our equipment cards a little bit better. Melee weapons have this symbol, while ranged weapons have this symbol. You will also notice that different range weapons can use different types of ammo. Next to the weapon type, you will see a range indicator. This will have the minimum and maximum number of zones the weapon can reach. For example, the Winchester 94 has a range of 1 to 3, meaning it can be used to shoot from 1 zone to 3 zones away. No more, no less. To the right of the range indicator is the number of dice that are rolled when attacking with this weapon. After this is the accuracy of the weapon. Each roll that equals or exceeds this value is a success. Lower results are failures. The last characteristic is the damage that this weapon does with each success. Damage does not stack with multiple successes. For example, you roll 2 successful hits with your sawed-off shotgun. You can hit 2 different ghouls in the same zone you shot at, killing them both.
Some equipment cards have different symbols on the top of them. For example, this symbol means that this weapon can be dual-wielded, while this symbol means it can allow you to open barricades. Other weapons may have special actions on them such as reload, which means you must spend an action reloading them before the gun can fire again. Or they can have the ability to combine with other items to make special weapons.
Now that we know about our weapons, how do they actually work? With melee weapons, it's super easy. You declare that you're going to attack with that weapon, roll the number of dice needed, and if you succeed, deal the corresponding damage among any target in your zone. For range weapons, it gets a bit more complicated. But the most important thing I need to stress is that range attacks target zones, not individual targets in the zone. This means friendly fire is possible. To further complicate things, I need to introduce line of sight and how it works. Mike, take it away.
In exterior zones, the character's line of sight lets them see in straight lines that run parallel to the edge of the board. Characters cannot see diagonally. I know you can see diagonally, but these people can't. Their line of sight covers as many zones as the line can pass through before reaching a wall or the edge of the board. In interior zones, a character sees into all the zones that share an opening with the room they are in. If there is an opening, the walls do not block line of sight between 2 zones. A character's line of sight is limited to the distance of 1 zone. If the survivor is looking from an interior zone to an exterior zone, or vice versa, the line of sight can go through any number of exterior zones in a straight line, but only 1 zone into a building.
Now that we know how line of sight works, when you go to attack with a ranged weapon, you can attack any zone that is in your range and your line of sight. Furthermore, when attacking with ranged weapons into a zone that has survivors and ghouls in it, any failed dice rolls are automatic hits against a survivor, dealing full damage.
The last action you can take is the do nothing action.
Mike, I think you spend enough time doing nothing.
We're at work right now, Tony. This ends your turn and all remaining actions are lost. There are several different types of ghouls you will face off against. There are walkers, the most common ghoul. They only have 1 hit point and only deal 1 point of damage when they attack. There are breakers, experts at tearing down your defenses. Breakers may break down closed barricades and closed doors, blocking their path. There are fatties.
Is this really the time for fat jokes, Mike?
You wrote this script. These Goliaths are the tanks of the Ghoul army. They have 2 hit points and deal a whopping 2 damage if they hit you. Furthermore, they will soak up damage from ranged attacks for other ghouls, and are required to be taken out first from ranged attacks. Lastly, there are your dearly departed relatives. They only have 1 hit point and only deal 1 damage, but as long as 1 relative or more is on the board, all survivors in Zombicide Mode switch to Romero Mode. After the relatives are taken out, the survivors switch back to Zombicide Mode.
The Ghoul Phase is broken into 2 steps. Step 1 is activation, and Step 2 is spawn. Each ghoul activates and spends its action on either an attack or a move, depending on the situation. Attacks on survivors or barricades and doors are resolved first. Then, any and all moves happen. Each ghoul in the same zone as a survivor performs an attack. A ghoul's attack is always successful and does not require any die roll. Survivors in the same zone split the ghoul's attacks in any way that the players prefer, and when a survivor reaches 3 total wounds, that survivor is eliminated and the game is lost.
Any ghoul that didn't spend their action attacking will use their action to move 1 zone towards the survivors. Ghouls will take the shortest path possible to get to the closest survivor within their line of sight. If no one is in their line of sight, the ghoul will move 1 zone towards the largest group of survivors on the map. In the event of multiple zones having the same number of survivors, the players may decide how the ghouls advance. After all the ghouls have activated, it will be time to spawn new ghouls. Find the white ghoul spawn token, then draw a ghoul card. Read the ghoul card and determine the number and the type of ghouls to spawn. This is based on the highest danger level among players. Place the indicated amount of ghouls of that type in that zone. Repeat this process for each spawn zone, going clockwise around the map. It is possible to have multiple spawn tokens in the same zone. Each spawn token still gets a card drawn for it. When the ghoul deck runs out, reshuffle all the discarded ghoul cards to make a new deck.
Besides the ghoul cards in the deck, there's one other type of card. Barricade and door opening cards. When this card flips up, no ghouls appear in the designated spawn zone. Instead, open all barricades and doors in the zones where ghouls of the indicated type are. Also, there may be a time when players run out of miniatures of the indicated type when spawning them. If this happens, all ghouls of the indicated type immediately resolve an extra activation. Multiple extra activations may occur in a row.
That's it. That's everything you need to know for the first scene of Night of the Living Dead. Have fun, and remember, shoot 'em in the head!